Tashilek and good morning. Welcome to Tibet Fest. My name is Tenzin Chopel and I'm one of the MCs for this event. I'm joined by Tsering Dachung, who is the MC in Tibetan. On behalf of the Tibetan Association in Washington, I'd like to welcome you to the 25th anniversary of Tibet Fest. This year marks a special occasion as it's the silver jubilee of this event. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we can't host a live event at the Seattle Center this year. But we can host a virtual one on our YouTube page, Facebook, and on the Seattle Center website. So welcome. For those of you watching all across the world or on our social media channels, thank you so much for tuning in. We have an exciting program for you filled with performances, artist interviews, textile programs, songs, and much, much more. We would like to note that many of the performances that you will see today were pre-recorded in late July and early August due to Washington State guidelines. However, all the performances, interviews, and segments that you'll see today are specifically for the Tibet Fest program.
인게 토니 도진 반나기래 다리에 워싱턴 별이 지도 속에 삽슈데 벽이 뒤대 탱니 생활라 페베 미마 용라 가소다 참지 테스트레 슈기요 벽이 뒤대티 토마 실로직동 국자 국주공알라 운수 나네 다발밀로 니생아 리보 코기요 로티니 믹세타 케벌체기로 실버 주블리 로시 차기요 여행견 탑 말렉 바실라 갸나네 중에 또이 예림디 균제라 때네 만소 달려 벽이 되되 태갈라 세럴 센터 두좀 제투메 이내야 달려 벽이 되된디 세럴 센터 키 자지타 모델타 유튜브 균에 태갈 시투기요 다리 셰다 샤브로 시바남 문 다와 듬바네 우티 슈심바시레 대야 워싱턴 트딩키 람든터 나와레 대때 잡된바 ngalelawa 시에직 난염슈 제미도 창매 다리 잡된다 지와til에 시완남 믹세기 다리 벽이 두된 제도이 대송자 창매 라라 소소 김라슈네 투 조병간이 시로나 대단님도 시애틀 센터기 둥규 로람 다버 나와라 닝타바네 두지체 대미 간수 벽이 두된 딘자시 고지 슈툭답 매바송자 별이 지두 쪽바타 산에 베미 용키 City of Seattle 타 for culture 대신도 art funds 키 겹교타 벤조 로람 나와 제수 이란타 투지체슈 마세 캡타난 킹키 진다 용라 신도 투지체슈.
Now, Tibet Fest wouldn't be possible without the various organizations, businesses, and community members involved. We'd like to acknowledge our presenting partners, Seattle Center Festal, Art Fund, For Culture, for their amazing support. And we'd also like to thank our platinum and gold sponsors for making Tibet Fest possible. Next up, we have the Trisung Dance Group as we welcome them back on stage for a song called Lando Gangi. So that was the last performance from the Trisung Dance Group, and we thank them so much for the time they've spent volunteering and sharing some of these dances. These next two performances are Tibetan contemporary pieces. First, we welcome back Legal and Denzel as they perform Darka Kusho, a song about youngsters going back to their different provinces in Tibet, while also singing and dancing about their love for apples, walnuts, and peaches. After that, we welcome back the Cholsum Pomo dance group as they perform a dance called Dashi Shapto, which is from the Kham region of Tibet, and it's played at special occasions. So we hope you enjoy both of these performances.
Shu kham bu sum la ga ha ga lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo ta sa bu shu kham bu sum la ga ha ga lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo Chesem ki bhumi nam laga ka lo chunga ni shikaze la lo do me to jawe bhumo de laga ka lo chunga ni gyata so la lo do bhumo de tu din de sacha de laga ka lo chunga ni hasa cho la lo do shata marta shura sum laga ka lo chunga ni yado yu so lo do Taka kushu kambu sum la gaga lo chunga ni rang yi cho la lo Taka kushu kambu sum la gaga lo chunga ni rang yi cho la lo lo chunga ni rang yi cho la lo Shu kham bu sum la ga ha ga lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo ta sa bu shu kham bu sum la ga ha ga lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo chung a ni thang yi cho la lo Di pa nam che sum la ga ga lo chunga ni am de cho la lo pa ta lo ko sha ta sum la ga ga lo chunga ni kam ki cho la lo ho ta no lu ta di ya so la ga ga lo chunga ni khu cho yi la lo cha ta chi bu ko yo sum la ga ga lo chunga ni me ki cho la lo Taka kushu kambu sum la gaga lo chunga ni rang yi cho la lo Taka kushu kambu sum la gaga lo chunga ni rang yi cho la lo lo chunga ni rang yi cho la lo
What great energy. Thank you so much to Legel, Denzel, and the Chosun Pomo Dance Group. Up next, Tibet Fest brings you Home Imagine, a collection of poems by Tibetans in exile. Curated by Khenrab Bande, Home Imagine is an attempt to create a home relying solely on the imagination. So you're going to hear from Khenrab a bit before we dive into some of these poems. So we hope you enjoy it, and these are stories of Tibet, our home imagined.
Tashidele. My name is Khenrab Bande. Welcome to the 5th Himalayan International Film Festival. First of all, we would like to thank the Tibetan Association of Washington for letting us be part of the 25th Tibet Fest in Seattle. This year, we are bringing you our project called Home Imagined. This is a collection of poems and short videos by Tibetan artists in exile. This is also a direct attempt to creating a home relying on imagination. So we hope that you will enjoy this little presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And also for more information, you can go to www.himiff.org. That's himif.org. Thank you so much. Please enjoy. Happy Tibet Fest.
Meditations on Barley by Tenzin Namdar. Tsamba soup. I saw this vestige of my culture on sale at a Patagonia retail store. It's a dehydrated instant soup that comes to life when you add a little bit of hot water. Made for probably white adventure seekers who will inevitably descend from sacred Himalayan peaks and then seek me out to tell me that they saw my country. They'll tell me how beautiful my land is, how strong the people are, the incredible generosity of the incredibly poor. They'll ask me if I've ever been to my homeland without ever knowing the deep intergenerational heartbreak of that question. Their curiosity is like the $6.50 exotified dust of a commodity that shares the namesake of meals my grandfather ate when he circumambulated Mount Kailash. When Tibet was a sovereign nation, when fields of barley grew on my family's farm in the Girong region of southern Tibet. Tsamba in its most simple state is roasted barley flour. Tsamba is what I have left of a culture and land from which I have been uprooted. Tibetans have a strong relationship to barley. It grows well even in high elevation and cold conditions. Archaeologists note of long-standing settlements with evidence of food cultivation and livestock dating back as early as 3,200 years ago, around the same time barley came to the Tibetan plateau. Barley and sheep allowed people to settle the land and transform the once scarce and harsh landscape into one with an abundant and hearty food supply. This essentially created Tibetan culture, totally not backed up by proper science, but definitely backed up by this Tibetan. During Losar, the Tibetan New Year, every altar in every Tibetan home is decorated with a sheep head and, you guessed it, barley everything. Seeds, stalks, and flour. We put it in soups to heal our children from colds, take it on long journeys, use it during ritual and special ceremonies. It's everywhere. Tibetan culture in all its romanticized, exotified, misunderstood glory exists today because of barley, because of Tsamba. It is both root and crown, both heart and sacral in perfect balance. Even after the Chinese occupation of Tibet in 1959, barley still grows on the plateau because barley doesn't care what mouths it feeds, which tongues chew and gnaw at her cell walls. Plants are magic like that. They don't know about occupation, dislocation, disconnection. Barley is deep-rooted, holds the land together to prevent erosion, and as a cheap crop nourishes the poor. I find myself crying looking at a packaged meal in a retail outlet mall thinking all these things. contemplating how I can sneak back into my own country because the government doesn't like to hand out travel visas for people with Tibetan names from other countries. The way the Chinese government sees it, those are the kinds of Tibetans who are spreading separatism by firstly following the Dalai Lama out of the country after the occupation, and secondly demanding freedom. I fit both of those criteria. It would be much more difficult for me to get access to Tibet than a person with a non-Tibetan name. So I don't want to hear gleeful, almost always white mountaineers and adventure seekers telling me how great my country is, because I don't know that for myself. I never have. Don't feed me unwelcomed reportbacks, and don't feed my heartbreak. I'll feed myself real zampa soup, the kind my mom made me when I was sick, the kind my grandpa carried with him to Mount Kailash, the kind that doesn't need a marketing team to sell, because it's in my DNA.
Tashtele, my name is Tenzin Dickey, and I am going to read an old poem called Yutok Lane, which seems right for today. It begins, "This is how it will be. We will take a walk on concrete, not blue tiles, and you will pretend to be disappointed. This will have the quality of a ritual. In the morning, the sun will fall from the sky. We will protect ourselves against its fire. It is not so unbearable, but we have learned to be wary of arrivals from the east. We are unbeautiful here. Our stay in the plains has rendered us so. But whispers now carry endearments, and we will not have it any other way. Outside the chapel, we will collect ourselves, then enter the bowels of this benign shell. Nothing in here threatens us now. We will pull out our offerings, crisp and new. This time, they will go where they are intended. The pilgrims are less urgent now, and slowly the shadow of the deity gains its substance. In the temple's deep, I will speak my name for you." Thank you.
I mean, say them pinjo.
Three must stand the shinging roller.
No.
Oh, yeah, Tangone. Kissing one in it, touching a law, and I shouldn't want to this saddle to Chichel Ali. Oh, yeah, when you pick a chimber tongue, not to meet each other. Mixing its engine on each other.
No, among Casco, Tambo, Chichikanuma, Tambo, the shoe, Kale Yandwa. Ante the Chesela, this Chicksadi Hago, made to this motion, but also this Lela Drodo, Tambo to Alta Saeton, Kanjiton Kang shooted.
Tambo Dilada. The Mustang Lenny Katsiresta.
They did.
Mustang Chin. The Mustang College shed that this had the minkare.
Di Luchimi Gaza.
Luchimi Jatsa.
No.
Said Dilla such a Dilming Shembaji young Purang Ranipoa.
Oh, never did like
Nepali Kela.
No.
Pekela.
Pegula Luchimi Gaza.
The Luchimi Jatsa Latini, touch it Tassado. Luchimi Jatsas in a color.
The Chimi Gaza Lana, the gang needed one. No, this Caswadi Cadicare. On this is the Chimi Gaza. And then that, however, woman, the one that had the Nichijaru, Sija, Cha, the stage. Tuba Laticola Muma and Ansu Disusha Dual Laticola. Jidang Suzuera. Pig young is to show her you one Conecona. Suzu Mijitoy do something thank you. Then Tanda that because we motion but this started.
다이크랑이 등산 총디 디콜라 직송다.
소운다 미라민들라.
야야. 가이나?
다 달루디 나자디 제네기라. 남뉴나 this isn't that osmi mongo roshile tuzere. 다 단다디 하서라 미민도와 나자디 제네. 이게 네발리 this 이무데. 다 this. 인지도 통해서 봅니다.
알라. 심은 남지는 인지도
이제 우리다.
알라 망치야 가리를 남지.
망치 자가도 네발리래. 자가 네발리체 아니 인지리 인지 옥토버 시즌을 망알리. This season net is 뇽알리.
강이 요마로.
강이 요마. 사디준 그 방지 장구체.
아야.
아니 남시 조장 따다로시.
드니 October 데와라 레드컵스 데 Lotus Tibetan Handicraft and Shopping Centers ni sidin like ro.
라.
드니 델레 인드컵스양 sidin la del라 먼저 데 치랑기 록바당 데 카르카르 요 디직숭다.
로보다 강다 요래라.
알았어.
고나사강디. 가서라니 지고래. 라. 델라다 칼라버다. 배박이 사에 텐두로다 다 가리네 사상 라이데. 건조 소신 받고 있어요. 건조 소 마시면 아이 디스스우데.
강바 가져야 돼.
접기에서 이러라.
몽부도 아니다.
가지 꼬몬 당 가지 에데스다. 부 자갈이다.
야, 롭자.
롭당만 갈라오래. 진짜 시와보다 아주 시작을 이러라. 아니 부지도 보면지. 아니 진짜 시와니 아니 부모디 부디 진짜 숨바시 부모디 진짜 시와래. 아니 부디야 부모디 진짜 가을에 부디 진짜 시와 다가랑 사서라. 안디지디 부모 로직 보고라샤. 아니 자 아버지 시빌게.
나 부아버티 시빌.
아버지 퇴사를. 되네 안에 단다 설기울이. 시간루마가 다 디샤르초라. 샤르초라 마 가서 여르스네 칸에 땅게 북직체 아니 디네마 티다 니체. 니체. 디초라 니체. 아니 디네마도 계상부게래. 숨미래. 안 눕절 때스 마요. 마 춘지 망아요. 파니 도디갈 솜바세 지거. 솜바 마가세지. 아니 갸부 마가세 지거. 엔 폴리스 갸세 지거. 안디가라 규교 마가세 지거. 디레타 콘저기 갈라오래. 디라마간디 따티스 지거. 아마로 지그리. 지레도.
야. 디라마가.
디리 갸블로라 히르.
디네 콤바전에 도다 디네 전전에 가지스 거리는 dinza.
주지 시스 구르.
콤바전전. 야.
주지 시스 구르. 강 메원에 랑가야 다지요.
단 제마델레디 시들랑은 냠도 줘야한다 근데 마가들.
디제디네. 다 칼라워지 낭 상마 다 뇨데 야트네 요라라.
로.
근데 마시다 다야. 디네 마노 다나 계산 북스야지 다나 코난 네블리스 코난스 망미기 대표주 시고.
알아. 거쳐래.
디네 마 다나 디닐기리 세시. 점숨니 야 보고 그래.
알아.
근데 디 마가디 콘저 배제 주도.
알아.
셴바 차장 다 너 말다 상민 도시 당사라 네. 배제시에
Wonderful. Kanrab is a local filmmaker, and he started the Himalayan International Film Festival in 2015. You can learn more about his work and HimF at their website and on their Facebook page, www.facebook.com/himf. So we thank Kanrab for putting this piece together. Next up is our food feature, so we hope you're really, really hungry. We have a special guest today. Her name is Kiki, and she's the owner of Himalayan Dumplings. She owns a Tibetan American restaurant in the Portland, Oregon metropolitan area. Today she shares some recipes on tsampa, a Tibetan staple, along with the background about how she got into cooking. So we're really excited about this program. We hope you guys are inspired by some of the recipes she shares today. So we hope you enjoy this tutorial.
Tashitele, hi, my name is Kiki and I'm a food content creator sharing Tibetan recipes, culinary stories, and Tibetan food history. Today, the video I'm going to show you is going to be for a recipe for an ingredient that's an integral part of the Tibetan cuisine as well as our cultural identity. But before I do that, let me share a little bit of the aspiration behind my culinary journey and my YouTube cooking channel. I didn't always look at Tibetan cuisine as a cultural preservation tool. In fact, as a new immigrant in the United States, I was very eager to assimilate and blend in as much as I could and rarely even ate Tibetan food in the beginning. My journey to celebrate Tibetan food representation only began upon motherhood, when I found myself gravitating towards Tibetan food to connect with and reassert my Tibetan identity. That desire to connect to my mixed daughters about their Tibetan side, using my cuisine as a gateway, it quickly evolved into food pop-up events because it allowed me to grow my efforts for cultural representation and preservation from my household to my local community. The response, the interest from my local community, it was overwhelming, and it's what encouraged me to grow my efforts even more to reach a global audience through social media, where I use visual storytelling to promote and preserve my Tibetan culture and heritage using food. You know, for me, food is a beautiful gateway to learn about other cultures. I love watching cooking and travel documentaries, and it's what inspired me to begin my YouTube cooking channel, where I can now own the narrative of my story and cultural identity as a Tibetan, and also help sow the seeds of cultural preservation along the way through my cooking as a Tibetan refugee and as an immigrant. So it really is a great honor to be here with you today in celebration of the 25-year anniversary of Tibet Fest and share with you a recipe that's very important to Tibetan cultural identity as well as our cuisine. Tsampa. The first step for making a tsampa, or roasted barley flour, is to rinse a barley. Here I'm using pearl barley, which is one of the options that you'll find in the market. It has a shorter cooking time than the other options you may find. If you want a healthier option, you can go with the hull-less kind. So I'm rinsing my barley, and once I've rinsed, I'm going to soak this barley and have it soaked overnight. Alright, now that we've soaked the barley, we're going to remove any excess water that's left. Drain all the water, and then we're going to prepare and layer. Spread out the grains into a thin layer so that way it dries evenly and quickly. Yeah, spread out the grains. And then we're going to take it outside. If you have sunny days as we are having in Oregon, dry it out in the sun. It shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. That was Coco, my dog, by the way. So yeah, depending on the weather you have, use your discretion on when it's ready. Your goal is to make sure that the barley grains are damp, not wet, damp. Alright, the important part. Let's roast the barley. Let's make a tsampa. Turn on the stove on high heat and make sure your sand gets really hot. And you can toss around the sand a little bit to make sure that the heat is evenly distributed, because it's what's going to protect your barley from burning. Add the barley, and we're going to be stirring a whole lot for the next few minutes. Keep stirring so it doesn't burn. And the grain will start separating from the sand, you'll see. See? Just like that. And you'll hear little popping sounds before you know it's ready. Gonna sift the grain from the sand. And you'll want to do this at least a couple of times to make sure you don't get any sand in your particles in your grain. Here's my favorite way to eat samba. We call it chamdu. Here are the ingredients to make chamdu. Starting off with changamu, or slightly sweetened milk tea, some tsampa, or roasted barley flour, butter, and this is chuship, a dry, crunchy, very unique Tibetan cheese made from the milk of a female yak. Start off with some tsampa, add some butter, of course, some chuship to give that nice bite to your chamdu, a little bit of sugar if you'd like to sweeten, and we pour our changamu to mix all the ingredients. There's a Tibetan instant porridge, so delicious. Anyway, keep adding the changamu until you achieve a porridge-like consistency. Here's the traditional Tibetan baby's first solid food, and still my favorite food as a mother. It really is delicious. This is my Belit Popula's favorite way of eating samba. We call it bak. Start off with some chapuja, or Tibetan buttered tea. You can use black tea if you want. Add some tsampa, or roasted barley flour. Gotta have the butter. Add some chuship, gives a nice bite to the pa as well. Then using your clean fingers, you mix around the ingredients. And unlike the chamdu, with the pa, you want a cookie dough-like consistency. Take a fistful and squeeze them into shape, yeah, just like that. Traditionally, pa would be eaten as a substitute to rice, or to pale, bread that is. It might not look very appetizing, but it's very delicious with a nutty, slightly nutty flavor profile, and very nutritious and filling as well. It is typically paired with a meat radish stew like this, and some homemade sipping or hot sauce to dip the pa in. And of course, we have a pot ready. So here's a snapshot of a very traditional Tibetan meal with samba in it. Tuchana, and thank you so much for joining me in the 25-year anniversary celebration of Tibet Fest. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make sampa and what sampa means to Tibetans. If you are interested in learning further about Tibetan cuisine and culture, you're welcome to join me in my YouTube cooking channel, which is under the name Himalayan Dumplings. Thank you so much for watching, and you take care. Tuchana.
Samba pungo song si gamba kewa Saka dawalaya shachi sai guchi gonda Samba sangi kamba poso tachi in the way Lega make a shady so ya nyeki lega in Lakba namla kanda kinsi samba sangi ina Godi yuda DJ guchi shady goni tanda Lodi seda godi gada ona parchi gada Urdi game tada badu purdi nyene desha Suji sida peba shungi gyapla lene desha Tanda badu sane deyu punga pama pesha Madi keke chago meme lotunga ye pesa Reta me akela milla kabi mere jesa Desa köki ari inne dose nganzu hasa Dokta chikti inda chikla dokti gameda Namla doji
Before we move on, we'd like to acknowledge our presenting partners, Seattle Center Festal, Art Fun, For Culture for their amazing support. And we'd also like to thank our platinum and gold sponsors for making Tibet Fest possible. The various Zampa dishes look delicious. Thank you so much, Kiki. Now, you probably saw in the feature, Kiki is pretty prominent on social media, so you can follow her on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, under the name Himalayan Dumplings, where she shares various recipes and pictures of some of the foods she's cooking. Now, if you find yourself in the Portland metropolitan area, you can actually attend the Beaverton Saturday Market or the Portland Night Market, where you can actually try some of Kiki's food. Next up, we welcome back our Sunday school students as they perform Dume Gungi Ninda. This song features another Tibetan instrument known as a gumang, which means many strings. It's a Tibetan-style hammered dulcimer. So we hope you enjoy this performance.
Bye.
Congratulations to Thomas and Tenzin Yishi. Thomas is attending Pomona College and Tenzin is attending Green River College Aviation. We wish them the best in their future endeavors. Next up, we have an interview with Made in Exile, a youth-led community arts initiative run by and for Tibetan youth to explore their stories about living in exile and growing up in the diaspora. The founders are based in Toronto, Canada, and they are Rinche and Tenzi Chimi, and they are joined today with our Tibet Fest coordinator, Tenzi Tsomola, where they do an interview via Zoom conference call about why they started this group.
Dashdile, welcome to the 25th anniversary of Seattle Tibet Fest. My name is Tenzin Tomo and I'm a maker and textile designer based here in Seattle. And my guests today are Rinchen Dolma and Tenzin Chimi from Toronto, Canada. And we are going to be talking about their community arts program, Made in Exile. This conversation also highlights how artists as organizers and as facilitators can really impact the communities that they work with. And it's such a relevant topic in the context of the work we do for organizing Tibet Fest in partnership with Seattle Center. So I'm really looking forward to this chat. Rinchen, Chimi, Tuchina for being here. Before we get started, if you can please introduce yourselves to our audience.
Just hello everyone, my name is Tenzin Chime. People also call me Tomo. I'm the admin director of Made in Exile. I was born and raised in Nepal and I moved to Toronto in 2016.
I was born in Kathmandu, Nepal, but mostly grew up in Canada. So right now I'm based in Toronto and I'm the founder and artistic director of Made in Exile.
Thank you. Rinchen, since you are the founder of Made in Exile, take us through how you started the program.
For so many years, I had this dream. I had this idea that that had me imagine a space just for Pebas to come together and make art. And this was at a time in my life where I was feeling really restless and urgently wanted our community to be seen. And I realized that for that to happen, they had to really be able to see themselves. And so I wanted that to happen in ways that were healthy, pushing boundaries, that was celebratory and inciting contemporary conversations. Because I'm a contemporary Tibetan, and the people I want to engage, who are my peers, are now the new generation of Tibetans living in exile, hence the name Made in Exile. So it was in university where I participated in a theater drop-in program called No Man's Land, which was in a largely immigrant Black community. And that's where I learned that you could create a space for people just to have fun together and create. And I wanted the same thing for us. And so in 2015, I applied for my first grant. It was called the Artreach Grant. And I made up a dream proposal and I received my first pilot grant, and it was a great program for me because it was made for young people to get into the funding sector. So that's how I got started.
Very cool. It's always really inspiring to hear how people are able to materialize their dream projects. And I'm really happy you made yours happen, Rinchen, because Made in Exile has really opened up so many possibilities for young folks in Toronto. And that being said, Somo, you were one of the first participants of the program, right? And I'm curious how you found yourself joining the program.
I had been in the country for only about a few months when Rinchen told me about this theater program. This was her dream project and she was talking about it so passionately, right? So I applied to the program and I just wanted to, try something new. But also, meet other young Tibetans in the city. Now, when I look back, I think of how courageous I was to have applied to the program because theater was something that I had never done before. And, like when you move to a new country, especially to the West, because of the dominant narrative around global North and global South, I think it was inevitable for me to go through some sort of inferiority complex But I guess, those first few months, that complex had not hit me yet.
I came to the US around your age too, Tomo, so I can relate to that. It's really cool that you were able to join a place like Made in Exile so early on during your time in Toronto. Either one of you can respond to this. Tell me a little bit about how the two of you work as a team.
I feel like for me, some of the strengths or the focus that I bring is largely on artistic direction, curation and design, community partnership building. And for Tsumo, she focuses largely on like financial management, administration, and actually together we work on outreach and facilitation. We practice accountability, and ultimately we work towards placemaking.
Something that stands out to me in the program, and this is in reference to a conversation that we've already had before, like the intentions of the participants and why they want to join a program like Made in Exile. They're not necessarily professional actors, or they aren't drawn to Made in Exile because it's a theater program, right? But it sounds more like they have this need to want to tell the stories, to want to tell the lived experiences as it is happening. So I can imagine that you must already have an archive of really brilliant stories in your program. So can you share with us, what are some of the themes that are explored by your participants?
We've had 4 cycles of our theater and storytelling program, and we've had such diverse stories emerge from our participants. So I'll just broadly cover a few of them. So in the context of identity, it's been in relation to language, inherited responsibility of the new generation, cultural appropriation and the Western gaze on Tibet. And when it comes to statelessness, we've touched on geopolitics, precarity, displacement, transnational families. And then more recently, we've touched on mental health, toxic masculinity, issues of alcoholism, and the process of grief and loss. And we've always had really powerful and creative women in our program. And so a lot of themes have been centered around motherhood, about historical female figures and women and how they labor.
I think in our community, there is this notion that, being in exile is a far more privileged place to be in, with, all the rights and freedom that we enjoy relative to our people inside Tibet. While that is undisputed, because of that kind of thinking, I think we tend to, not see our unique struggles in exile as real struggle, which is not true. So I'm so thrilled that, all these stories and themes have come up in our theater program.
Which brings me to your rug weaving program from last year. I love that though the program was very different from your past events, you were still able to incorporate the storytelling component from your theater programs. It was really exciting to see the participants get a chance to experience this really key facet of our oral craft tradition, and how the knowledge and the skills are passed down from one generation to the other, right? If you can share a little bit more about the weaving program.
Unlike our, theater and film programs that we have done in the past, the weaving program was, in its, truest sense, a completely Tibetan-powered program. Because, we had amazing mentors like yourself, Acha, who guided us through every step of the way. We had Papin Batsring, who built all the looms for the program and refused to take money. And then we had our, all the amazing amlas who not just taught us how to weave, but then taught us the entire process of how to make a carpet, right? So, we didn't need anything outside of ourselves for this program. And what that did was, showed us our potential as a community, right? But, this program was not just about the technical aspect of learning that skill, right? As you said, storytelling was a crucial part of the program, right? our elders, they didn't just, have their skills to share, but also the stories, stories of their relationship with carpet making as a source of livelihood, right? And I think that in itself is a testament to their resilience in exile, right? Because the carpet industry, it in itself, could be a chapter on how our elders survived and thrived in exile, right? So I think this program became a space where young and older Tibetans came together and really saw each other and acknowledged each other's experiences, right? There was this, very beautiful moment at the community showcase for this program where at the end of the event, we sat down for a sharing circle, and some of us shared, how grateful we felt as, as we heard our elders' stories and reflected on how far we have come as a community because of our elders' resilience and hard work and determination and all of that, right? And on the other hand, the elders were so happy and they were so proud that, the young folks valued their skills and knowledge and were like determined to connect with their roots by learning a traditional skill. So, it was a really emotional moment where, a lot of us were crying, and I think for me, that moment just summed up the essence of the program.
I only got to follow your textile program through your Instagram post, and it was really incredible. So I can imagine how moving it must have been to actually be in the same room with everyone, sharing their stories, and for the participants to show their final woven piece. So that must have been really amazing. Rinchen, I do want to ask you a question that ties to an early conversation that we were having about grants. And I'm wondering if you can share, in your opinion, how receiving grants for community arts projects such as yours adds another layer of accountability and growth versus, say, like a self-funded initiative.
I think what really sticks out to me in that question is actually about growth. Because I felt that our community is really overstretched and constantly fundraising within ourselves and having to operate out of scarcity. But here in Toronto, there are so many grants we can apply to. And all I did was, when I first started this, like go outside of our community, find resources that we are entitled to and bring them back into the community, and then decide for ourselves like how we're going to distribute that. And so for me, I felt like it was such a beautiful opportunity to have received this fund for an idea on behalf of the community, who are the real stakeholders of this idea. And so after getting those resources, like I now had the ability to distribute them. And what that looks like for us as Made in Exile is paying guest artists and ourselves as staff equitably, giving our participants a free program with an honorarium, and then also consciously buying from local businesses in Parkdale, so we're putting money back into the local economy, and ensuring that we work as hard as we can to get donations in kind so that we can actually beef up our budget lines to either pay people more or cover their travel, give them more kala. We really learn to be able to proudly put money into young people's hands, artists' hands, and community members' hands. And in terms of accountability, I'm accountable obviously to the funders because it's public tax dollar money, but also to like our participants who are our peers, who are our community members, the artists that we work with, to mentors and community advisors who support us throughout all this work. And so I'm accountable to our community members at large who come and witness the work that we create. So that made me really understand what it means to be accountable within a community context and see how all those things intersect.
Thank you for sharing that, Rinchen. I'm sure it'll be really useful for people that are just getting acquainted with applying for grants. But more than the process, I think for me is this conversation that we really need to be having on understanding accountability and how that allows for a very authentic and healthy growth, right? So those were all the questions that I have. Is there anything that we haven't covered and that you'd like to share?
So, from my work at Made in Exile, I've come to see how important it is for us to share and listen to the stories in our own community, right? We often talk about unity, and I think, a step towards achieving unity is, to listen to each other's stories, empathize, and, really understand that, yes, our experiences in exile are rooted at the colonization of our country, Tibet. But, also acknowledge that we have and we are going to have diverse experiences because of so many different reasons, right? So I just wanted to, stress on the importance of storytelling as a way for us to be healthy as individuals, so that, our families and our extended community members can be well and can thrive together, right? And I think, that's what I mean when I see, storytelling as a catalyst for community building.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I would love for young people to understand how to create impact in a way that doesn't generate harm or drain ourselves, and also to do that through the worldview that we come from, which is indigenous to us as Pibas. There's a huge need to understand the value in oral tradition in our stories, as Somo has mentioned, especially in a contemporary context, because it is what will ultimately sustain us in our future. And I think that we are deeply intersectional people, but we just need to put it into practice. And storytelling is in itself a decolonial practice. And I think that we are a people who have experienced real scarcity, but have found powerful ways to thrive despite that. We don't have our land, but we do have our stories, and no one can take that away from us.
And on that beautiful note, we will end this conversation. Tuchina to both of you for spending time with me. And I'm really looking forward to continuing this conversation in person, hopefully at their Seattle Tibet Fest next year. And for those of you who would like to stay updated with their future residency programs, or would just like to get in touch with them, please give them a follow on Instagram and Facebook. It's at Made in Exile. Thank you. Tuchina.
Thank you, Tenzi Tomola, for conducting the interview, and thank you to Rinche and Tenzi Chimi for sharing their stories. That was amazing. Now, Tomola is actually the engine behind Tibet Fest, so we really thank her for all the contributions she's made this year. Next up, we have a brother and sister duo, Lego and Tensel Dontong, as they perform Senpa Rinze Wangmo, a song about how beautiful Rinze Wangmo is. Please welcome Lego and Tensel to the stage. A wonderful performance from our youth. Thank you so much, Legil and Tensel. Next up, we have Gesang Amye, who's back again at Tibet Fest to share a presentation about Tibetan clothing and jewelry. This year, her virtual presentation will be on contemporary Tibetan bridal dresses, also known as chupas. The construction of the Tibetan chupa has remained unchanged for centuries. However, in the last 5 decades, changes in lifestyle and living conditions have led to several modifications in this contemporary silhouette, especially in these bridal dresses. Gesang will take us through this beautiful textile journey, so we hope you enjoy this exciting presentation.
Hello, Thursday. My name is Gesang. Welcome to 25th anniversary of Tibet Fest in Seattle, Washington. Every year, I'm so thrilled and excited to be part of this beautiful, beautiful festival. This year, we brought you a glimpse of Tibetan bridal dresses. I hope you all enjoy watching it as much as I enjoyed making it. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yeah. pomo rohimen dakshari samje jingcha soyun hate pete pomo ngato rongile la kiche zomboyo re 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 janchare shikaya la chalwe hate pete pomo ngato rongile la kiche zomboyo re 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 janchare shikaya la chalwe bon hom toyo titsem metr dana siti metr sit yana garçon metr nje yana bonjo metr dana ngazo baby bomole yana kiss de mare yon kor karong dami yen mano himare yon tchingomore dana ngazo baby bomo senji hikaya morison dana ngazo bomo kiss de ma hikalang triang mon dana bomo senji ber bomo ngazo rison dana siti metr sit yana garçon metr nje yana bonjo metr dana ngazo baby bomole yana kiss de mare yon kor karong dami yen mano himare yon tchingomore dana ngazo baby bomo senji hikaya morison dana ngazo bomo kiss de ma hikalang triang mon dana bomo senji ber bomo ngazo rison baby bomo rohimen dakshari samje jingcha soyun hate pete bomo ngato mettre dans notre city mettre c'est y'en a garçon mettre de y'en a bon mettre dans notre baby pour moi y'en a kiss de maré y'en encore caron dami y'en de manon qui maré y'en de comme dans notre baby pour moi senti hikaya morison dans notre pour moi kiss de ma hikala rien mon dans pour moi senti per pour moi notre raison dans notre city mettre c'est y'en a garçon mettre de y'en a bon mettre dans notre baby pour moi y'en a kiss de maré y'en encore caron dami y'en de manon qui maré y'en de comme dans notre baby pour moi senti hikaya morison dans notre pour moi kiss de ma hikala rien mon dans pour moi senti per pour moi notre raison dans notre city mettre c'est y'en a garçon mettre de y'en a bon mettre dans notre baby pour moi y'en a kiss de maré
Thank you, Gesangla, for that wonderful presentation. The chupas were quite exquisite. Next up, we have an interview with Ladik Takpa, who is an alumnus of the Tibetan Institute of Performing Arts and who performed today. Ladik is also the lead instructor of our Tibetan Language and Cultural School when it comes to dance and music. And he's being interviewed today by the Tibetan Association Washington President, Tenzin Tobchen, about his background and his passion for Tibetan music and arts. So we hope you enjoy this piece.
Taringazo pyogi tuje teng local teng ni sanga singin number thamal test le shwen tarin ki nyen tung design dila ngaran zo serial to shube ni ya de ga surbata ni gyuzeba thari thapala la thiboti len shwen thari thapala taringazo de tu to de tuje che shwen an thoma de la ni thari la so so mo de robson chang ro nanda
na so ta thoma de la kiran shugo na shire tari di nyen tung di gyu ne sensin na nge samol ya test le shwen 아니 네명라 사릭 타고이 아니 마레콜 롭슈이나 마레케스디 야갈호조 벨고비 시자체 간다 중디 로구 파트 지가 부수간 라브라토에 간다 진짜 담보레 니버레 간다 디 메게 시자체 근데 국지 공예로 간다 도가 아니 벽이 도가 조배 몽데 리숑롭데 공수 최베 부지 아니 국지 공원에 지니 니돈 줍디 파트 간다 로 니상이 시링라 도가는 예대 고급 총수 아니 디 바르야 간다 단다 벽이 탑된 규제를 직망시 싸워주야를 드네 걸리걸리 저거 시험버체 gem버체 등원체 gem버체 드네 타마타마 알아 튼디 공부시디 도가 기겐레로 도지 봐도 간다 이돈 주든 봐도 비 대야 고총수 아니 드네 대 이돈 주든이야 알아서 대산에 시애틀이야 더 덴저로 싶어체 다대 버도로 니 파스 두도 제선다 대리네 수수 소외시도 레바치기요레 인베네 샤도 쇼르 다 쇼스네 간다 디케션 부시지 간다 데 시애틀 산줄랍다 알아서 대산에 산줄랍다리아 도하기 게로 시제 도서 대시슈에
노소 니다 하리라도 표준도가 네 템베 이 lok도진도 표준도기다 단다 년도 신년 남라 니 표준도가기 갑종기 모두 롭점지 나로나보다 냠도니 단대차 땅님마드네 단대차에 있네 표준도가 나 lok도 추단기 lok초디 간데 이미지 롭점지 대신하고
그래서 다 디슈나 당보 도가 간데 수이메로 다 예시우신이 왔다 롭슈이나 제가 니마 당보 지금 고정감 중 하고라 간다 겨울무시 더 야가 진줄이 페로 간다 페마타도 아니 지가 아주 취하다 리준디게 냐자제 계신 간다 믹스에 도공 시제 저거디 주베 저거시래 안 진줄이야 저거 당보도 시작이요 아니 디주서디 깔림보 저라 제단의 야가 시작으로 아니 주고 다른 사람이 파페베 저거시래 제가 되네 진짜 단다 바로 무티네 저거 도가 저거디 다른 사람이 내시 대열시 쉬이 아니 디레타 가서 재원
재원이와 디다 단데 예마다 단데 알아다 플로브 담당 간데 이메
디 알링엘 디 슈저스탄 도가기 디레 랭게 무슨 단미규 조들
단미규 조들
디 다 롭슈베나 벽이 들어가서 들어와 간다 디기 대시 슈고 주는 다 간다 이게 알레 도가기 이게고 강라야 직접으로 교육 이제 자표 맞지 타디기 리베스도 되게 가. 아니 나를 리슌첸진 봐. 점리용수 계주치 세번 디 직접 교육을 봐. 더 디날 페이지 투기도 되어가기다 미규 디 롭스 대시 자고 있는 디 자표에서도 자다표 자카나니 단 자가다 자나시기로 더 단대샤노 자나다 표시기로 간다 타직도 대화면 봐 타직도 노가 부르스 된 대면 간다가서 최대의 신식이 여러 자신 붙인다서 디밍 먼저 수타지도 냐자체 자 냐자체로 면 별 자샤위나 개미 거주 툭툭빈 도시당 매워서의 최 리슌의 게이르 디게 매워서의 탑지 최대 제심으로 세상에서 대전주의야 타지도 디게 냐자체 더 냐자 균진체로 받으니 균진체를 니마 단 나라빈의 유협의 리슌 사시부터 갸소체체 알레 갸르도의 체체 당연하지 디 균진체발라 니 디로와 균진체고 디 냠보수지의 미념 공배 제국이어라 제상 간단 냠보수지의 미념 공배는 원능시 아니 잠블링 용수 계주지 제번하시 잠블링 사조 거와이네를 간다 딩자 체중을 연미되어 보지 아주 초보디 거러게 제간다 즉 고급 컨텐츠라고 이네 또가 리슝리 별 리슝리 취하다 취 리슝 취하다 되고 쉬차대로 제가 되게 가지고 도둑 영조 잠불링이 되는다 캡터를 다 간다 또 스페기 제대 제신부 레시에 디 나오는 개체 직 당주 리슝 세나다 망부 여러 가지 나나 근데 아주 개체 직 삼회 리슝디 지금 자기요 단디 드랍 주시로 주전 당분계 비제베 디 삼회 리슝디 개체 직제 당하는 시간이 저것좀 너무는 아니 아주 롱다 야심부 시라로 롱제 수수수 개조에 된다 간다 릭슈르에 나온다 나오르에 다가는 시기 다가 체결에 되게 당아주 타직도 냠시 제제 아니 타직도 어디 야자 제기 간다 제대 제심으로 해서 주시요 잡자 제로
민도 어디랑 차이더라
네 저거 나가야 돼 다가라로 아니 부구 담당 거들어야 돼
나온요
예 부구 담당디 냐마냐마 땅 아래 마다 배치수로 왔지 공연 딩엘던 망부 중요를 중에 중요를 팽의 중요를 되게 슈가 거 재님도 같이 나오면로 이번에 아래가 없어 부분이 싸움 잡시시 담들 또 되게 배제 레라브로 지레샤 다대 담당이 지게나다 디두미 부레레야로 깨당체 야 깨당체 간다 옹부견제 옹부디게 지단 당부를 시다 직 오서 루제나 직 추르에 기든데 메로 팅다 시우다 팅이 들어 시에당원들이 팅이 동아라
알아 저 디두 담당들 양 시작 정도 고미로
아 배제 고이로 이는 가 팅도 카시에는 땅이 있으기도 부부 망보여로 나 땅어 팅이도 당아래로 임베네 다 디슈고 디고주 공알로 디 제라는 니동 시라 양 부부 카직 담데 니동 게라 카직 담데 되는 니동 줍시 정하시 무튼 로숨시 담소 디디 다 단대 삼당나다 직 텐데로 두 삼매치 the Indian Idol 제 하는 거죠 American Idol 제 이게 오디션 재단에 가서 TV나 통과로 네 데려다 시다가 텐데로 직 부레레야 등자가 레제 담주능이 디 무게 슈지 간다 미나 망부 가제조라 싱마치 아니 이게 미 리우 싱마치 배제 지고
다 카우로 또 인가지
땅에 기도 직체 차외 기도 직체 되네 러시아 땅에 직체 되네 팀이 간 수수 거리 신경 있는다 디세 아니 비위 멍시도 시한지다 간제요메 졸어가 직시로 얘기 간다 디네를 리우 가시죠 제가 녀마지게 달래베 디 야가 또 텐데로 지었다 갈래 세데미도 다 간다 이래로 지래
알았어 공기 모듈에 순나서라 단다 아리라 페원에 진짜 단다 세들기 선줄라달라 도가 얘기 당신바를 송토아 근데 혼기 염용 가리로 총소라 냠도 니 단다 도가 개겐 선줄라달라 나웨기 값소니 가자 니마 표준 도가라 롭주이 백업기 종달 치단기 된대기야 람도지델라 데기 롭투라 랍탄도 된대도지야 표준 당당 유나메나 롭좀 주로나
알레 다데 시애틀에 또 선줄라달라 랍니 표준 로니 스투스투와 아니 당 지단 된데메로 마라 지속으로 니나 주로다 직시archo다 노초라니 다 여도 계시고 뭐로 벳 만다지나 지가 다 자가 되와 샤쇼 되와 임바 이런 거죠 다 도가 있네 부 춘주된데 랍뉴 더가는 신다 랍다가 되어 랍에 고급된데 총수로 다 베게는 코리 컨텐츠 요르세나 디르와 지가 부 프랑스 장되라 장되 예매를 야미도 같이 간다 기겐도 실레서네 메가고 생고데레 규지슈에레 나 된데게 코리로 샤디요 디 직체 연 대와미 니 두가레스 케슈메로 이번에 코리오로 로가차데로 부고를 직 도난시라요 되지바 도다시라요 때마다 아니 직 백이나 리드미 수수 기세 장도에 시라 매버이나 디검스게 도나 제 먹어야지 아니 직 개조 무슨 일 간다 디스 개베로 제 한다 고리고를 배 로가차 되시로 디스 딱강에서님도 디스 채우르시도 만다르지 직내 원들 다 개체니 여러와 디직 개레시다 개기 마당
넣어서
가르친 시면 제가 샤쇼 대월미 상황 지속으로 로가요로 배버지서 벽에고 역을 파서니 개겐도 로드바라 계자디게 로드 고스에 레사요 봐. 근데 노조를 명어서 배버 상황 잠대요 봐. 네네. 지단 넘기 인지계랑 랍자카데 저디 다 델리디 게 마당다. 마당 세님도 다 간다. 고스에 디스칼레요 봐. 네네. 디기티스타 강의 체로 직도로 봐. 당은저 간다 단단한 리슝 간데 시작하고 있는 길 두고로 당한 담아하면 돼. 직 로고래 직 티고래 뭐. 제가 내다 리차드 이런 저 표시에 시장고 중에 인지널파 티제 인지는 파 유를 쓰입니다.
이제
벽에랑 세단디 인지는 톤 파티.
프로나운시에이션 디
프로나운시에이션 디 인지는 티제 딘데로 차디요. 디 강의 직접. 강의 직들이 뒤지 그러와 계시죠. 땅에서 야가되고 차시하고나 님은 용답 수직 정거로. 되는 수준이 있으니까. 또 수준이 제외나 딘다라 님은가 수주 차고로. 또 대 딘다라 수직 니 딘다 차셔로. 또 벳 케워셔서로.
나오래.
또 비기 랍단디 델 티바이나 따다 디기메 버르시. 또 간다 인지기는 프로세스 이루어. 프로세스 디페링보다.
네네.
또 간다 다리 티조디미 제마 사니마데 연결리드 전부 지혜로야지. 간다 또 빨아들라 뒤집에 그런 거예요. 또 제마 진짜데 좀디미 알링에를 텐소에 당해라 고레시 뒤지마. 에 사발라벨에 연 뒤지시라 말이야. 근데 저 뒤지 강의래시.
알로스.
그래.
아니 다 단지라를 송원나시 맞죠 일단 같은 지동계 국준에 진입 배워 망고지다 지게라 가와 가서 농가 가와서 레니다 배배 지도의 카톨 진주기 지도의 카톨교로 차대요라 다 단대네 단대 지갑수 아니 하리라다 교제와지 임베톤에 따당 간에도 주메다 한 교제와지 임베톤에 다 단대기 배배기 내당 데라 아니야 고갑지다 까지 가리 통고도 된대도지야 삼주요나
네 나서 다들 지다 다 대시거로
나오 다 지게라
너 지다 나라 델레 다 사버와지 로니 하스마스 두고 말이야 다 사버진디 쉬우쉬우 개체도에 말아 이번에 수다직 삼루로스도 삼루 여번에 직 고에 가스님아 주에 주인 봐 직다 가라라 다 몸에 유에스레 메세레미다 로니 상이 스링라다 장교기 탑된 규제다 탑에 이내를 배배를 저당에 다 지겨워 디미 지졸라 알아서 대산이 지졸이야 라투나 삼규로 같이네 지보 말에 산줄라도 지보 말에 단계 견슈 벌숨나 다 딜라 라베디 니 된다 니스도 시켜신 분 통도 찍내 가레스 쉬고 있는 들어와 든든데 규실 랍나 먼저 다 라베디 뷰타고 실라베 가지 개게 들어와 그 뒤에 지기나 이라멜라로 메오지 가지 토두기 랍투나 지금 알아서 리액션 들어와 타당마를 파베던데 교제 단데 디렉션디 지 가족도기 네트워크 디지털하다 무티니 말아보체 네 디직체 딜레 개체적인 카르통도 세워이나 아주 셰 샤브르 르슬라와이는 타 팅사 지조를 미드가 아주 베베 미리고 다라라 아직 셰 샤브르 가부르시 셰 샤브르 샤베이나 지금 냠좀 용해로 치러 세상 팅사 지조가 지금 투부 시우차들 주제다 대신 벳 미고를 벳 로가테 다가는 신경 지게 단데 델리도 미 프로 잠대로 봐 잠제제 소 뒤주에 수zam에 시라메 요로시 로사다 중가다 노베신데 신다마시 단예 드르시 고주도 웬다지 테마직스로 좀더나 아니 다 개체지디 간단한 자든 두고게로 베베 자든 제사 디게 용어를 민건주 알링엘 수직 루루세 도자지리 고고라 틀람 도자지리 다든수 용어를 양디고라 미 담지 장고고라 지가 수수수 고향되고 뭐지 수님도 좀 담지 장마 용천다 지세낭세 정말 다 알아봐 아직 파즈 펜지 뭐시에 뭐장에 배고 싸우들이 투에를 근데도 주나 아주 칼레가 간제 시에 있는 지 하루고 사수 정부신 거로 다 간다 자동 투고 봐디 네 다 근데도 심이 유심시 간다 니 디치도나 상구 지 니마이 고주에서 다 나자디 있게 지 발생 정부로 샷으로 다 모든 시에기 디 자시 안 다가는 시 다들의 개체슈직 들에 된대로 신나고 있나 점점 더 양시제 다 시에디 뒤는지 먼저 야가게 무슨 뭐 하나 시로 나오래 시에디 뒤는지 미마공에 두세 다디 잡존데 가르치는 아주 시에디 귀는 아주 점뒤는 아주 들람 도저지디 아주 지세나서 봐서 저거 좋은 시계제 시에 다간다 다니 부르시
대화지 야부스야
대화 야부스라 다 다가는 시네 용보이나 당 아주 점점 더 망부르 샤서 다가는 시 부고 로칭한데 되나 인보스 용으로 인지해 주시나 냠타 안 디게래 직 통해를 중으로 직 배거든 som나 인데로 시기도다 지가 시에네 데이터베도 계좌에네 인데 시에도 암절 고거로다
그래래
단 제가 부고를 단들 믹스 게임도 하면서 암절 고거나 야다 바가자 당부 샤고로 하면서 부고래거나 부고 춘주만자니 내려 간다 로이아슬레 내려 간다 디게래 다 계체로 시도와 다 간다니 도도 쉬고이나 니 인데로 시토나로 견슈 발숨 상원 다가는 이제 베베사 되는 된다 직 아메 기변으로 중국에 삼구들 왔다 yeah
loso migi mone ya ani hari la da tiwa thama de la ani ta thanda ma zo phebe na shwe na ro ne gyuze thola ya ing yunye da gyuze thola de lam thola da de do nye gi de ba yunye gi ani shongge de la ni thande gi da phebe ne dan di thone ni hari la lam de do je yuna shwe yi
그래서 다 슈 개学메로 말아야 된다 장도 장신을 놓친 줄 왔다지因为呢他lokso sene mindu khanda rewa shue ji larwa ta tanda suzu ta shungge sol de mixe mixe ta suzu pöden korle pöbeza den korle ta karine je yorwa 직 벽에 뼈다고 장애인의 비위 장애인의 간다 시에샵도 장애인의 칼라스도 셀라스도 장애인의 간 세계 거리인의 장애 yorwa 인바인 거리 장바 뒤로와 지가 일라면은 지메버체 즉 춘지지면에 간다 뼈다고 장도 얘기 답시 싫어 시시행이 간다 비규슈의 디 계신부로 와요 지나 먼저다 로숨주스 납주스기 제일 뭐 성을게시 때문에 마음바 삼단 단 부구디게 전부 적으로 와. 또 군수기 다 대화스 유다니. 자간 나도 먼저 배비지 쪽으로 열어 와요. 사소야 거. 대화미 고란족이 부구 제마 시에 오셔놈이 at least 직시에 유지. 그리고 지금 비타고 직장에 놈이 말서 열어 직시에. 인제로 시거지. 다들에 니 심바 레원이 쉬어요. 직디 간다 다다는 부로 총아 시로아 그제 주로 줍디 도림라도 텐서시에네 간다 디 메기 부든데 거. 디게 당 알아 동지라인 이로 지가 대화 부시게다. 지금 가시지 시로아. 마음바 당주 벽에를 벽시에 차베디게를 지 펜도 디검스 민도와 사메로스다 아니 디검스기 디첸다 디검스기 장대 매버레다 마장에 더 강전 마장마다 말이 간다 디검스기 도나말레 얘기 이네도 메로 삼도 이거 알아 섬지라이로 제가 딘데인디 디게라미 텐서 마선에 당한다 레와슈엘디 개체중은 미디어 같이 아잔자다 펜토도 또 펜토로 와요 아니 개체중은 마디어 같이 간다 수지 랭게이 삼들와 지가 자든 당주 두고로 와 표쇼데로 된다 소수수 간다 나와야 마디어체 디 랭게이 삼들 간다 장도에 개체 무슨 것도 배진디 제로 제신이 레와슈 나는 이제 다들 부구래 루두딩게 그 적성 바로 다가다 이메 부구지로 디게 미 부구부를 담이 코로나 잠불링 통도스 마시 삼시주 코레 말하다나 근데 파마로 와 파마솔에 이래와슈에 이로 다 상매 ken고래 다 텐스로시 디 간다 당 상매 미규 첨부로 와 직수수 부구디 마음바 지가 간다 배대 돌에 미 직하거나 벽에하고 시켰던 벽에하고 시켰던 애래 벽에하고 시켰던 애래 근데 다 미규 상고 전부 저러 와 미규도 좀 많이 버쳐러 즉 이래야 제거해 줘 디두벨 미규도 두벨 딩어도 삼점에 니 투쇼 스님도 다직 두메로 삼고도 여러 와 디게 미 이래 걸에 제거해 줘 다 계셔셔디 디르샤 쉬우쉬우 장모드네 쉬우쉬우 랍모드네로 즉 베베 검시 상부저로 가서 여러 조선 여러 상주에 세줘라 딘데로 있다 부을 때도에 직체 가다 벽에 가지고 나온 뭔가 곁에 딘데지 마시 심바 먼저 산주랍자라 대화 숙심부터 가지나나 산주랍자 미수지를 되게 쉬워내셔라 개케랍도 힘들어 그래서 파마기 냠티 메나 로고 메나 제가 나랑 뭔가 되고라 부 제가 가뒤에 직 벽에 마우스 겹투에 안타나 시다는데 겹종다 나서 시 때문에 쉐도 리그로 하는 스피커 딘데 인지 부부도 인지 다 딘데 니리로 가지고 두두기 베베 단다 그러셔던데 레 모터널 주도 있는 간다 암전은 바자스 되기로 하는 부지 랑신이한 인체로 슬레모에 성부터 딘데로 좀 이제 봐야 그래 그렇다 또 상매하고 다 제세로 좀 마시 슈슈시에 뭐 알았다 장도 장신 베이로 그래서
아니 다리라 다른 투제 대단 투어디 토지 제슈이 아니 먼저 2년 동생에 상말라 다른 게 있다 다리라 냠도 저티랭기 디자인이다 요용에 레와슈이 토지체
Thank you, Tenti Topchenla, for the interview, and Larikla for spending so much time on the stage today and also doing so many of our features. Now, this interview was cut short due to a set time limit for the Tibet Fest program. However, You can find the full-length feature on our YouTube page, Tibetan Association of Washington. You'll also find the other segments from this program as well. Next up, Klarik and Sedokala will perform Ngomboninga. Every Tibetan opera presentation starts with this ritual dance, and it serves as a theatrical approach to purify the stage on which Tibetan opera is being performed. It's adapted here not as a performance, but as a precious blessing for community prosperity. So we hope you enjoy this performance. We'd like to acknowledge our presenting partners, Seattle Center Festal, Art Fund, For Culture, for their amazing support. And we'd also like to thank our platinum and gold sponsors for making Tibet Fest possible. So that's a wrap on Tibet Fest 2020. On behalf of the Tibetan Association of Washington, I'd like to thank all our guests, sponsors, performers, and volunteers for the contributions they've made to make Tibet Fest 2020 possible. Now, we couldn't do this without the professional studio crew at McCall Hall, who did a lot of the video editing so you can see the performances today. But most importantly, thank you to you, the viewers, for checking in and seeing what this is all about. If you'd like to learn more about the Tibetan Association of Washington, you can visit us on a few pages. On our website at www.washingtontibet.org, on our Facebook page, just look up Tibetan Association of Washington, or on our Instagram page at Seattle Tibet Fest. So we hope you were able to learn a little bit more about Tibetan arts and culture in this virtual format. We are so looking forward to next year where we can hopefully have a live event at Seattle Center. But in the meantime, please stay safe, enjoy the rest of the year, and we'll see you in August 2021. Tujiche.
다른 벽이 두든 탱니 생아바디 죽두바다 찹직 워싱턴 베리 지든 속에 찹슈데 찹된 바남바 잼된 바남바 달라 차로 나켄타 자게 토네 세무싱케 미만 남바 용라 닝타바네 투지체슈 테마세 시애틀 센터 메카 홀키 년진 또 차레 나켄 용라 닝타바네 투지체 다른 벽이 두들라 세무시바남 투토보타 펜도 중에 레와유 Kerto lo juma la Seattle Center to pyogi tudwe la jebe mentu shu. Tuji chena, tsangma lo tuja naro na.
Oh